My name is Viola Pierce. I am a nursing student in Nursing 511, Theoretical Foundations, a multidisciplinary approach. I want to kind of talk to you about Florence Nightingale, the lady with the lamp. I want to preface it by saying the reason why I chose Florence Nightingale. When I first became a nursing student, I remember my nursing instructors talking about Miss Nightingale and thinking, what does that have to do with my practice, and what does it have to do with me taking care of my patients today? I understand that she was a pioneer when it came to nursing, but what difference does that make? And so that is the reason why I chose her, because I wanted to kind of understand the background, kind of understand the reason why she's so important, kind of understand the reason why she keeps coming up. So my objectives today is to cover her background, cover her history, cover the components of her nursing theory, and the relational statements that she may have made, whether her theory was inductive or deductive, and just to cover her impact on nursing research and practice. So a little bit about her is that her background is that she was born May 12th, 1820. She was born to a very wealthy family. She was motivated to care for the sick early on in her life. She kind of took care of one of her aunts and felt that it was God's calling for her to take care of the sick and injured. Her father, who was a little bit different, thought kind of outside the box, privately educated her, because at that time in her life, women were not publicly educated. They were only the men were educated. Her mother wanted her to be a socialite. She didn't necessarily want to be a socialite. Her sister and her mother opposed her being a nurse, and the reason why was because nurses at that time were considered low class and promiscuous, and so but she just she didn't go with the grain. She kind of went against the grain on that, and so she went ahead and became a nurse. She went to Kaiserwerth, Germany, which was the only nursing program or nursing school at that time, the only official nursing school, I should say. And she went from 1950 to 1951. So she went for only 1 year to this school. She came out of the school, and then she became the nursing superintendent for the Institution for the Care of the Sick and the Gentlewomen in Circumstances. Now, she became this nursing superintendent, and she never got paid for this job. She was an unpaid job, but she felt that it was her calling to take care of the sick and injured. So I guess she, with her wealth, she was okay with that. And during the time that she was there, she implemented many changes that improved the care of the people that she took care of. Now, I guess just because of her connections as a young woman, she was connected with the Secretary of War of Great Britain, because at that time they were in the Crimean War, and she once the Crimean War started, he noticed that a lot of his soldiers were dying from injuries, and about half the army, and so he connected with her, with Florence Nightingale, and Florence Nightingale connected with him. They both were interested in her going to Turkey, to the Scutavi army barracks, to take care of the soldiers, because she felt like that something was going awry, something was not being done. And as a result of her previous nursing at the institution for the sick of the care for the care of the sick and gentlemen in circumstances, because she improved the care there, she felt like that she could maybe make a difference in the war. And so she and 38 other nurses were sent to Turkey. Once she got over there, she observed that there were just dreadful conditions of the war. And then she also met with opposition from physicians. And the reason why was because she believed that nurses were women and that they were autonomous. And I don't think that the physicians necessarily thought that. She felt that you worked alongside the physicians, but you were not subservient to the physicians. And so the physicians didn't feel that, she should be over there. But, opposition wasn't new to her. She faced opposition prior to her leaving home from her mother and her sister for her going to even be a nurse. And so she was okay. She was okay with the opposition that she got. She was not, and as I researched her and I read about her, it was, her answers were soft and they were tender, but they were, direct, and they didn't necessarily go with what you wanted to hear sometimes. She said what she needed to say, but she was, observing of the fact that she didn't necessarily need to be harsh with what she said. She noted the source of the soldier's deaths at that time, transport to the hospital. These were some of the sources, including but not limited to transport to the hospital, the state of the hospital, open sewers, the deficiency in cleanliness, pure water, fresh air, and wholesome food. And so as a result of that, she introduced the new systems. That cut the casualties from 48% to 2%. She was considered the lady with the lamp. Now, way back when, I thought, well, what's the big deal with the lamp? And I still didn't understand the lamp until I kind of researched her this time and found out that because the nurses at that time were considered promiscuous and also that they were considered low class, she went out with the lamp at night to not only observe how the surgeons were doing, but also to see whether the nurses were being promiscuous at that time. Her development was inductive, okay, in the way that she observed the poor conditions of the war. She noticed a pattern, and then she formed a hypothesis as to the reasons why the soldiers had the high mortality rate, which she deemed the sources to be poor air, dirty water, inefficient drainage, uncleanliness, and poor lighting. And she collected data to this effect, and then she formed her theory as to how to make it better. Now, the components of her nursing theory, which is what it is and what it is not nursing. The first part of it is healing. And then she said the second part of it is leadership, global actions. She felt that leadership and global actions were essential to healing to sustain it at its deepest level. And so, this was kind of thinking outside the box, and this was healthcare reform in her day. And the reason why she's so important is because she did think outside the box, because she not only wanted to affect the patient at the bedside, she also wanted to globally affect the patient. She also wanted to provide that leadership in order to be able to globally affect the patient. The thing that I found out that was the most surprising to me is that she really didn't spend a whole lot of time at the bedside. She may have spent 4 months as a bedside nurse. Other than that, she was a leader of the nurses. She was the one who told you what to do. She was the one who collected the data. She was the one that's doing what we're doing now. In this era of healthcare reform, where we're more concerned about, which we should be, more concerned about outcomes as opposed to processes. She was a leader. She was the one who first started this. She also implemented strict record keeping, her statistical reporting, and she also made the polar area diagram. And the polar area diagram was basically a diagram that kind of, showed the areas where, the deaths from the wounds in battle, the deaths from other diseases. She kind of showed what was going on. And from this data that she collected, she was able to see what was going on, the reasons why it was going on, so on and so forth. Now, once she finished in the Crimean War, her work at the Crimean War, she came home to England, and she transferred to Army Medical School. She also had, she highly regarded or highly respected Lambert Quintelet, which was a guy who was a statistician. But instead of having his statistics be about just regular math numbers, he was a statistician when he focused on human behavior. And so because of this, she highly respected his work, and she studied it, and then she implemented a record keeping program for the government health statistics, which I'm sure that we probably don't do the same things that she did, but very similar to the things that she did way back when. Her most memorable note is that she started the Nightingale School for Nurses at St. Thomas. Her relational statements was that she said healthy environments is essential to healing. She understood that the environment, and that was her big thing, was the environment. She more focused on the environment than she did on the actual patient. She focused on the patient too, but the environment around the patient she thought was highly important. To put a constitution in such a state in that it is well, have no disease, that it can recover from disease, which is what she wanted to ultimately do. Pathology teaches the harm that disease has done, nothing more. We know nothing of the principle of health, nothing but observation and experience will teach us the ways to maintain or to bring back the state of health. And this is sort of along the lines of her collecting the data and making sure or understanding what the data represents. And then to nurse is a field in which one may say there is no end to what we may be learning every day. And I remember thinking when I was in nursing school initially that, the human body is the human body. It was made, and this is the way that it should go. But as throughout my nursing career, I've learned that the human body is very different on, each and every individual person. And so we have to, with that being said, that there's variations in the way that we heal, there's variations in the way that things go about it to bring us from disease to health and from health to disease. And so, with that, we're learning every day. And, she was a pioneer in that she already knew that. She already knew that we were learning every day. Her impact on the nursing research and practice is that, basically back then she had statistical benchmarking for hospital performance. She was the one who initially started this. She was the one who said that, nursing should be a profession. And then with the profession comes, the data collection. She also improved clinical care across the board just by her data collection and by her statistics. And she improved the barrack and the hospital designs. She went into the barrack. She was like, well, there should be open windows. There should be fresh air. This bed should. She designed the hospital or the barrack so that it was conducive to healing. She was a pioneer, and I am, I'm kind of in awe of how, she has done her work. And I'm just, I'm like, well, I really did not know that she was such a pioneer in her day. And no error of references. And this is the end of my broadcast. Thank you for your listening.